What's up, y'all? I'm Jin. I'm an engineer at Teqsport, and today we're going to be going through an install of the GR86 Teqsport stainless steel braided brake lines. Some of the tools we're going to need for this job is a 12mm socket, 10mm flare nut wrench, locking pliers, regular adjustable pliers, and tools to remove your lug nuts. So what's included in the kit are 2 front brake lines, 2 rear brake lines, retaining clips for those lines, as well as banjo bolts and copper washers. All right, so now let's get these wheels and tires off. All right, so usually I like to start off by removing this retaining clip using these pliers. If I can get it in there, I think these might be 2. And I like to also get this retaining bolt off this bracket, because when you get the hard line off, it's going to start dripping brake fluid everywhere, and it's kind of annoying to access after. It's also really nice to take note of how the brake line is strung. All right, now you would want to take your vice grip and your 10mm flare nut wrench and first clamp the bottom of the hard line right here with your vice grips. Get your 10mm flare nut wrench and crack the hard line loose. Just completely unthread it and let the soft line drop. There you go. It's always nice to have something to catch any residual brake fluid dropping. After we get that cracked, now we got to loosen the brake line off of the caliper using a 12mm socket. When removing the fitting, also make sure you get the additional washer that may be stuck on the caliper. You do not want washer on top of washer when we install the new brake line. After you remove the OE hardware and brake line, what you want to do is take the new front, this is the front brake line, and have the banjo bolt with the copper washer inserted into the fitting, and then the copper washer on top, such as this. So you have a copper washer sandwich, essentially. I find it easiest to first install the caliper end of the brake line. You want to put it in between these 2 grooves within the caliper. And because there's a lot of brake fluid, it's really difficult to tighten the bolt down, so I like to have a 14mm to help thread this in. Once the brake line is secured into the caliper, adjust the brake line to fit back onto the bracket, and use this 12mm bolt that you initially took off and thread this back in to secure the bracket. All right, now that you have that bracket secured, attach the line and connect it back to the hard line. Once you got your brake line threaded into the hard line by hand, take a 17mm wrench and your 10mm flare nut wrench and tighten up the lines. And snug it up and don't strip it. Once you have the brake lines threaded together and tightened, take your retainer clip and put it in between this slot right above the bracket. And that's how you do the fronts. Now onto the rears. Now time to take off the rear tire. All right, for the rear, the process is generally rinse and repeat. So start off with taking our pliers and taking off this retaining clip off of this bracket right here. Now you take your 12mm wrench, and the bracket is right here. And you just crack that loose. Sweet. All right, now get your locking plier and flare nut wrench again. Sometimes it's easier to pull the hard line a little back so you can get a good clamp. Get your flare nut wrench, get it over the hard line, break that loose. If I can. Oh, there you go. Once you get your hard line off, take your 12mm socket and loosen the brake line from the caliper. Once again, make sure your washer has been removed. All right, once you get the rear OE line removed, get your braided steel line with a 90-degree fitting. And once again, put the copper washer between the bolt and another copper washer on top, making sure the 90-degree fitting is in between the two. Thread this back into the caliper here. Yep, you'll need the 14mm socket for this. Once you have bolted your brake line into the caliper, take your initial 12mm bolt and thread this back into its original position. Once that's threaded and secured, move your line into the bracket and thread the hard line into your braided steel line. Once that is hand tight, take your 17mm wrench and your 10mm flare nut wrench again and tighten the assembly together. Tighten that up till it's snug. All right. Once you have the area cleaned up a little with a little brake cleaner, position the brake line so the groove is right above the bracket so you can get the final retaining clip in. All right, once you're done assembling it, it's always good to clean off any of the residual brake fluid on any painted surfaces or any surfaces in general so it doesn't erode it. So after you install their brake lines on one side, do the exact same process on the other side, and do not forget to bleed your brakes. If you have a GR86, GT86, FRS, or BRZ, check out Teqsport.com for your stainless steel braided brake lines.